I can kindly ask you to settle down in order for us to start promptly. First and foremost, a warm welcome to all residents and elders and stakeholder groups that are present in our engagement on this Friday afternoon. A warm welcome and thank you for making your way to this very important engagement. Also welcome to the National Department of Social Development, as well as the Western Cape Department of Social Development. Also all honorable members present. I will give them an opportunity to shortly introduce themselves. My name is Wendy Kaiser Philander, and I'm the chairperson for the Social Development Standing Committee here in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Colleagues?
Good afternoon. I'm Donita Stevens, and I'm a member of this committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Memory Boyson. I'm a member of this committee. I'm also the chairperson for Health and Wellness.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Benedict van Minnen. I'm a member of this committee.
Thank you very much, members. I haven't missed out on any other member? Not? May I just ask residents that are seated in chambers, you will find a device at your desk, and that device is for translation services. You can just search on the device in front of you for the channel that will best suit your language need. So the presentation is done in English. You will see that, or you will hear that the translation service is therefore available from English to Afrikaans and English to isiXhosa. We've just another member joining us. Member, can you kindly introduce yourself for the record, please? Please move to a mic. Can you please move to a mic, member? Mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Francois Kamfer. I'm part of the Social Development Committee.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon, member. And then I will give the department, the respective departments, the opportunity to please introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair and honorable members, colleagues from both the national and provincial departments of social development, our older persons present here this afternoon, all structures of older persons within the province, providers of services within the province. Good afternoon. My name is Civil. The surname is Lekhodu, and I am the Chief Director responsible for the Program of Older Persons at the National Department of Social Development. Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable members. Goeiemiddag almal. Is lekker om julle almal te sien. Ek het lanklaas te so baie mense gesien by 'n public hearing. My name is Charles Jordan, and I am the Chief Director for Children, Families, and Vulnerable Groups here in the Western Cape Province by Social Services. So thank you very much.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Nondumiso Chona, Social Work Policy Developer, Provincial Office, Older Persons Program. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ibtisam Rassia. I'm a social worker within the Older Persons Program.
Thank you very much. Any other officials? No.
Well, Chair, my director will still arrive. She's just running late from other meeting, but she will be here soon.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I believe we've dealt with the attendance register as well. And then I will just ask our very capable procedural officer to also introduce herself.
Afternoon, members and community members. My name is Nomonde Jamuka, Procedure Officer for the Standing Committee on Health and Social Development.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jamke. The purpose of the meeting is to hold a public hearing on the Older Persons Amendment Bill, B11B of 2022, just to perhaps to provide you with a bit of background in terms of the legislative process that was followed up until this time. The bill was referred to the Standing Committee on Social Development by the Speaker on the 6th of August 2024. On Tuesday, the 17th of September 2024, the committee was briefed by the National Department of Social Development on the bill. In terms of public participation in this bill, the bill was advertised in the mainstream and community newspapers in 3 official languages to reach stakeholders from different communities. And in addition to this, the notice for all the public hearings was emailed to municipalities as well as to NGOs. The committee is complying with Section 118 of the Constitution and Standing Rule 72 of the Provincial Parliament Standing Rules, which says the Provincial Parliament must facilitate public involvement in the processes of its committees as required by the Constitution. The committee will formulate its mandate for the province based on the public input received during the public hearings on the bill. The NCOP timeframes for the consideration of the bill are tight, and we must adhere to them. The committee therefore appreciates all the stakeholders that are present in today's public hearing. Today's public hearing is the 6th hearing, and it's the last one that the committee has scheduled on the bill. The first public hearing was in George on the 3rd of October, in Saldanha on the 9th of October, in Beaufort West on the 11th of October, in Worcester on the 16th of October, and in Caledon on the 17th of October. Today, the committee is here in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament to give community members from the Cape Metro region and surrounding areas an opportunity to have a say and to give input on the bill. After the public hearings, the committee will then consider the input made by members of the public in conjunction with the committee input and formulate the negotiating mandate, which means the stance of the people of the Western Cape on this bill. This meeting that I'm referring to will take place on Thursday, the 24th of October 2024, and the committee negotiating mandate report on the bill must be submitted to the NCOP in the National Parliament on or before Wednesday, the 30th of October. So, ladies and gentlemen, once the negotiating mandate is submitted to the NCOP, the committee will again meet at a later date for the consideration of the final mandate on the bill for submission to the NCOP on or before Wednesday, the 6th of November 2024. I also just want to duly inform you, if perhaps today you have missed out on something of u het nou iets vergeet, toe jy nou huis toe gaan het ietsie bygeval wat u graag nou sou wou deel met die kommittie om op te neem in ons verslag, then you are more than welcome to still make a written submission to the committee on or before the 23rd of October. And upon conclusion of our meeting, Ms. Jamke will provide you with the contact details as to where you can make that written submission. Without further ado, Ms. Chief Director, I believe I can hand over to you at this point in time to give us a brief overview. My apologies, perhaps just before you start, the Chief Director will be referring to this presentation, and the presentation will start at point 3.1. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Whilst you are moving to the relevant part of the presentation, I just want to highlight a few things that should enable you to have a sense of precisely what is it that is happening in this province and in the country before I zoom into the presentation. Currently in the country, we have approximately 6.2 million older persons, approximately 6.2 million older persons within the borders of this country. And in terms of this province, the Western Cape, there are a good number of older persons, and I think all of us will understand that the Western Cape is one of the provinces that in fact has the highest number of older persons. You are the second province with the highest number of older persons. Gauteng has gone over 1 million, and the Western Cape is currently threatening 1 million. And I'm going to leave that part also to the chief director within the province to unpack and share with you precisely where you stand in that regard. But I also want to say to you, this country, like many other countries, has not been able to escape the impact of population aging. And as a result, we now have our older persons living longer. We are also having a lot of older persons that live beyond the age of 100. And you would understand that if people are going to live beyond the age of 100, there are implications, lots of implications, socioeconomic implications and sustainability issues and so forth. Now, we currently have 147 centenarians in the Western Cape, 147 older persons who are above the age of 100. But I need to also indicate that this number is not really 100% reliable in the sense that it comes from the database of SASSA. And remember, we have the means test, which excludes other older persons who are perceived to be living within a means that is beyond what would enable them to qualify to get an old age grant. So on that basis, within the province, you have 147 centenarians, and 133 of them are female, and males are 14. So this is the situation within the Western Cape. There are other issues that the Chief Director will also touch on. I thought it was important that I just highlight those areas so that everybody gets to understand where we are. But what brings us together today is the fact that as a country, we deemed it necessary to facilitate the review of a legislation that we have been implementing since 2010. And we are now at a point where we have concluded the review process. The principal act is called the Older Persons Act number 13 of 2006, and it is a Section 76 bill. And this process of us coming to a point where we felt it was necessary for us to amend this legislation, which is our principal act, which remains in force until enactment of the amendment bill takes place, was specifically because we picked up that there were some gaps that were impacting on the smooth or effective implementation of this particular legislative framework. So we have been able to effectively facilitate the amendment of this act and insert some new definitions and provisions relating to the monitoring and evaluation of all social services rendered to older persons. I need to also indicate that this decision was not solely taken by the National Department of Social Development. We had extensive discussions and extensive consultations with all our provincial counterparts, but we also had to engage with a variety of stakeholders. We had our South African Human Rights Commission taking part in this process. We had the South African Older Persons Forum. Surely many of you are aware of the fact that the Department of Social Development at National has established what we call the South African Older Persons Forum, and we do fund and support the forum at national level. We, however, have an expectation that all provinces would support the forum at provincial level so that it can be able to operate effectively within the regions and as well as the districts. So those are some of the key stakeholders that we worked with. We worked also with research institutions, law firms, and we all came together to discuss this legislation. But we also concluded our discussions and elevated the outcome thereof to the offices of the Chief State Law Advisors so that they could assist us in terms of making sure that we remained within the imperatives of the Constitution of this country. And to that effect, we concluded the amendment process, and we then identified key areas. One of those key areas was, of course, the insertion of measures for the removal of an older person to a temporary safe care facility without a court order and tightening the existing implementation and compliance measures, therefore giving effect to greater textual clarity and providing for matters incidental thereto. The primary reason behind us taking engagements and agreeing to this particular insertion was specifically to make sure that we put the older person at the center of our actions, and also to make sure that the protection of older persons were elevated in any incident where their status, their integrity, their dignity, their well-being, as well as their safety and security were challenged. So because court orders take a while before we can receive them, we noted that over the period of implementation, older persons continued to endure abuse whilst we were waiting for court orders. So this insertion is going to enable us to facilitate the removal of an older person from such a situation that is impacting negatively on their dignity and integrity, or impacting negatively on their well-being. And the other amendment that we have looked at was to facilitate our response to the legislative gaps on the Principal Act and ensure that similar implementation challenges that were hampering the protection of older persons were also addressed, and one of which is the one that I've just given an example of. Furthermore, we had challenges as various government departments and key stakeholders relating to how we coordinated processes, but also making sure that there was integration and smooth collaboration in terms of delivering on the imperatives of the Principal Act, which is Act number 13 of 2006. And I need to also indicate at this stage that when you read the Principal Act, it is important that when you look at the amendments, you must also read the amendments in alignment with the Principal Act, because these are amendments. So we are trying to improve on the provisions of the Principal Act, which is Act number 13 of 2006. So those gaps have been addressed, and we have started engagements with various key stakeholders and various government departments, as well as key implementers of services in this regard, to make sure that we close on those gaps and address intersectoral issues that have been impacting negatively on the smooth implementation of this key legislative framework. But we also looked at the core mandates of various government departments to ensure that what they need to deliver on is in alignment with the imperatives of their core mandates. The amendments will therefore enable us to strengthen the monitoring and evaluation measures on services to older persons, inclusive of proper enforcement measures for non-compliance, that is an imposition of regulated penalties. We are also saying, in the event provision of services are compromised, issues of non-compliance have been discussed with key providers of services, and there are no improvements regardless of plans that would have been put in place, timelines that would have been attached to such, we then have no option but to facilitate the imposition of regulated penalties. Now, the amendments intend to strengthen Chapter 5 also, in terms of making sure that the protection of older persons with the introduction of strict measures and penalties would then enable us to enhance the dignity of older persons, thereby promoting their rights and ensuring their protection from any violence, violation, and abuse perpetrated against them. I need to indicate that this, for me, is the heartbeat of this particular Principal Act, because this is the section that really focuses on the well-being of older persons. It elevates the importance of all of us collaboratively engaging and working together towards making sure that at all times the dignity and integrity, as well as the well-being of older persons and their safety and security, is at the center of the work that we do as government, but also as providers of services. Proposed amendments also proceed to 3.7, where we have dealt with definitions. We have looked at three definitions. One of the key things that has been bothering the aging sector was the differentiated ages in terms of which our older persons qualified to be called an older person, and automatically the issue of the old age grant application. We now have amended that to have everyone called an older person once you turn 60. So there is no longer 65 for men and 60 for women. Everyone who turns 60 is now considered an older person. We've looked at the issues of providing care for older persons, and also dealt with the definition of caregiver, extensively looking at all circumstances under which care is being provided to older persons. And one of the key areas that was, of course, omitted was the issue of family care being provided by family members. We have also looked at the definition in this regard. And I need to emphasize that one of the key things that has also prompted us to look at the provisions of services by caregivers is because of the very issue I raised relating to population aging, and the fact that we are now going to have more older persons as our older persons live longer, and they're also going to live beyond the age of 100. So as we have more centenarians and we have people living longer, we need to make plans for the provision of care and services to them, whether they reside in residential care facilities or they reside in communities within which they are based. So the issue of caregiving is high on our agenda, and we have facilitated the training of caregivers, and we are working with provinces to ensure that we increase these numbers.
My sincere apology, Chief Director. Just wanted to make a quick announcement. Ladies and gentlemen that are making use of the translation services, just note that the Afrikaans translation is on channel 4 and the isiXhosa translation is on channel 6. So you can just press the button in front of you on the hard device, and then you will find Afrikaans on channel 4 and isiXhosa channel 6. Let's just keep the device at your ear.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So these are the new definitions that we have looked at, and we have also looked at new definitions where we have defined assisted living, stakeholder, independent living facility, frail care facility, but also the interdepartmental structure, which I've already talked about, where we have strengthened collaborative approaches and engagements by various government departments so that each government department can start focusing effectively on delivering on their core mandate aligned to this specific Principal Act. So, for example, we sit with residential care facilities. In residential care facilities, all of us are aware that we have people that provide medication, that take care of the health of the residents within a residential care facility, and those are nurses. We also have social workers within such facilities. So we have looked at the various government departments that have got a contribution to make, and we have also, considered such situations so that they can also be taken care of in this regard. In terms of assisted living facility and independent living facility, we know that we have older persons who will move into facilities not because they are not able to do things for themselves, but because they need that protective environment and perhaps networking and to be in the space where other people are, because they live alone or for many other reasons. So we are saying even when we have older persons in such facilities, they need to also be kept as active as it is possible so that we delay the onset of the burden of disease. And such facilities must also be managed in a manner that enables the older persons who live in such facilities to still be able to remain active. So I've talked about the interdepartmental structure, the issue of palliative care, private residential facilities, and temporary safe care. Temporary safe care is linked to what I said in terms of the removal of an older person from their homes or the areas where they reside in the event they are not being well taken care of. New definitions were also added post-public hearings where we looked at the issues that I raised in terms of family care, special care, and also the definition of caregiver, which was revised to ensure that we include those carers who are family members because they were excluded and yet they do deliver on this service. In terms of chapter 1, we have looked at objects, implementation, application, and general principles. Under section 2, we have strengthened the issue around the protection of the rights of older persons in conformity with the Constitution and domestic law, as well as to prevent abuse against older persons. Now, section 3 has looked at the insertion of new subsections 4 and 5, and also on institutional and coordination mechanisms to include an interdepartmental structure and strengthening the partnership between the department and offices of the premiers in relation to the implementation of the Act. I need to also indicate that we have ensured in terms of section 2 that these amendments are aligned to our constitution. We have had engagements with the offices of the Chief State Law Advisor, and they have advised that this legislation is indeed constitutionally correct. And we have also looked at the imperatives of the AU protocol, and we have also ensured that these were submitted to the Office of the Chief State Law Advisors for guidance and confirmation, and they have signed us off. We do have a certificate that indicates that they are happy in terms of how we have crafted this legislation. And then in terms of the issues of coordination and institutional mechanisms, we are referring to offices of the Premier because we have specifically noted that in provinces where the offices of the Premier are participating actively in terms of the provision of services to older persons, we do have progress and there is better collaboration, and they are able to also hold various other government departments accountable. And we are saying when we do craft regulations for this legislative framework upon enactment, we are going to ensure that we outline the roles of offices of the Premier, the roles of the offices of the MECs, and various other organs of state to make sure that everybody is clear in terms of what their roles and responsibilities are so that we can have them being held accountable in terms of that. But I need to also indicate that some of you were part of the recent public hearings which were led by the Portfolio Committee on Social Development during the 6th administration. And some of these issues in terms of the unhappiness of older persons, in terms of a number of issues, the issues of medication not being available at clinics, the long queues at SASSA pay points, and the long queues at clinics, and all those issues, the state of hospitals in the province, and the treatment that is being given to older persons in terms of the provision of health care were raised by older persons. And for the first time, when we went to respond to the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, we were accompanied by various government departments. Human settlements had to come and account in terms of how many houses are they allocating to older persons and so forth. Issues of municipal rates, we had also SALGA in attendance, and the Department of Health was also in attendance. We had SAPS, we had the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. And to that effect, there is great commitment in terms of facilitating improvements on the areas where we lacked previously, which in fact contributed to us coming to a point where we felt it was necessary to revisit this legislation and facilitate its amendment. Now, we have also looked at the plans ahead to make sure that when we conclude this legislation, we will have those kind of regulations clearly assisting everyone and guiding everybody, but training will also take place at that particular point in time. Section 5 has looked at the insertion to include necessary measures to eliminate harmful traditional practices, including witchcraft accusations, which affect the welfare, health, life, and dignity of older persons. And in this regard, we do know that there are a lot of other provinces where there is a high level of abuse of older persons through the misunderstanding of aging, issues of aging and ageism, and the lack of knowledge in terms of issues of dementia and Alzheimer's by families and communities. But we have also seen the dignity of older persons being compromised through social media. You have seen a lot of videos that have been doing rounds where grandchildren have in fact, and children have been abusing older persons for their own grants. So in this regard, we have dealt with the issue of accusations when an older person lives longer, because people now conclude that the person is a witch. Why are other people dying when they are living longer? We have dealt with that issue in terms of this legislation because we have seen many older persons, for example, in the Eastern Cape, in Limpopo, in KZN, being burnt down, killed, and been taken out of their own communities because they are living longer. And young people are dying for a variety of reasons, and they get to be blamed for that. And we have also tried to address those to make sure that the dignity of older persons, but also the practices within families and communities get to be effectively addressed. And we're also looking at Section 7, which is going to assist us in terms of bridging the gap between the generations, because you would not expect our older persons to be happy to be abused by their own grandchildren, because the current situation in the country, the issue of unemployment is now making older persons second-time parents. They are now providers of families. They are now responsible with their own grants to make sure that families are sustained. So on that basis, we want to make sure that they live in harmony with their own families, with their grandchildren, and with their children, because they take responsibility for the sustenance and survival of families that they live within. So those are some of the programs that we need to also strengthen, but we have also covered this aspect under Section 7. And we have also looked at the protocol to address the issue of the challenges that we picked up are experienced by older women more than older men when they lose their spouses, and these experiences are mainly linked to their property rights, their inheritance, and the physical abuse that then eventually kicks in. And the protocol articles have covered this very well. So we have looked at the AU protocol and made sure that there are insertions to cover this particular aspect. And in terms of Chapter 3, we have looked at community-based care and support services to older persons. I did indicate that we are now having population aging, confronting this country, and it clearly says all key stakeholders, government, and everyone within the aging sector must start joining hands to make sure that we plan collaboratively and in an integrated way, so that we can be able to provide all the necessary services to our older persons. And key to that effect is that we need to start acknowledging that older persons are going to have to live in families, and therefore they will be based in communities. So we need to strengthen the provision of services through community-based care and support services centers that are there within communities. So it then becomes important for us to start investing our energies and resources into making sure that the community-based care and support service centers do work for older persons, because we can't have them living in their own houses and not having an opportunity to go and meet up with other people, spend a day or half a day with other people, remain active and participate in some activities. So these centers are very critical at this point in time to keep our older persons active. And We therefore echo under Section 13 for the registration of community-based care and support services to make sure that these are registered under juristic persons and trusts rather than under sole proprietorship. Now, we have also looked at the importance of insertion of penalties for contravening Section 13, which is issues of non-compliance by providers of services. We do know that there are providers of services who are in the field of aging, not for the right reasons. Their hearts are not there. And hence, we continue to note the heightening levels of abuse of older persons. In many facilities, we recently had 2 facilities which MECs had to intervene in, where older persons are dying of hunger. They are being ill-treated in such facilities, and there is abuse of all forms against older persons. So these kinds of penalties will enable us to deal with issues of non-compliance, but I need to also emphasize that as we do so, we will engage and plan and come up with timeframes for milestones to be achieved and to move with our providers of services so that when we reach a point where all timeframes have been flaunted or there is no cooperation, compliance cannot be reached, we then come to a point where we will deal with the issue of penalties. And eventually, we do know that we will move to a point where we deregister such facilities and we close down. And as we do so, care will also be taken care of the older persons who are within such facilities to make sure that they are comfortable, their families are engaged, but also those that have been providing services for them have been effectively engaged. And these issues will be picked up as we make sure that we strengthen our monitoring and evaluation of community-based care and support service centers, but also residential care facilities. I've talked about the role of caregivers and their training, that we are now providing accredited training to them as a national department, and provinces will be supporting us to ensure that we widen the scope of training. We also have started creating a database of those that we have trained, but we also have facilitated the training of providers of such training so that we can reach more carers, as we are definitely going to need more hands on the deck in terms of the provision of services by carers in families, in communities, but also in residential care facilities. We have also looked at monitoring and evaluation of all these facilities to ensure that compliance is adhered to and that systems are in place in such facilities. Section 17 has enabled us to insert new paragraphs, paragraph K and paragraph I respectively, which makes provision for assisted living and independent living as additional services which may be offered at residential care facilities. I've already unpacked these kinds of living arrangements within facilities. Now, coming to residential care facilities in Chapter 4, we have looked at Section 18, where we talk about the registration of residential facilities, and we have done those amendments to allow that only juristic persons or trusts must register for the provision of residential care services to include private residential facility, assisted living, or similar facility in the list of facilities that must be registered by the Department of Social Development. Now, I've already unpacked this issue, and the main rationale of the issue of juristic persons and trust versus sole proprietorship is to make sure that we do not deal with individuals when there are challenges, but we deal with trusts and we also deal with juristic persons, because it will become quite easy. If it is an individual who is in the space, we now have to deal with the individual's family, the individual's children, then the matter just becomes quite messy. So Section 18 has allowed for the insertion of Section 18A, which makes provision for the deregistration, closing, and revocation of the registration of residential or community-based care facilities. I've already explained this as I was talking about the importance of compliance. Section 22 looks at monitoring and evaluation of residential facilities, strengthened to tighten compliance measures and monitoring, as well as evaluation systems. Now, Chapter 5 speaks to the protection of older persons. I did indicate that for me, this is the core to this legislative framework. where we really take into consideration the importance of the care of our older persons, their protection at all times in every space that we find them in, and also making sure that we promote their rights and their integrity and dignity as well. So Section 25 has been amended to look at what I've already talked about, older persons who are in need of care, who have been maltreated, abused, neglected, or degraded by any person, caregivers, family members, even people who are not related to these older persons, or those that accuse them of witchcraft, or by the communities who continue to blame them for inexplicable events. We know that the issues that I talked about, where older persons get to be driven out of their communities, it is not normally done in a mob way. Mobs come together and they gang up and they deal with the older person, burn their family homes and so forth. So this section has been amended to enable us to deal with such eventualities. Section 25 looks at the insertion of Section 25A, which deals with the removal of an elder person to a temporary safe care without a court order. I've already talked about this, but what is important at this stage is to indicate that this being done, there is that understanding that protection and there is also need for immediate emergency protection within 6 months time frame in a temporary care and protecting those acting in good faith. It is important that this matter of 6 months also be taken into consideration by those that facilitate such removals, so that we do not remove an older person and there is no action that follows after the removal, because there are services that need to also kick in immediately upon removal, and there should also be plans in terms of what is it that is going to happen in terms of long-term care for such older persons who have been removed. Section 25 has enabled us to facilitate the insertion of Section 25B, which deals with older persons with disabilities and chronic illnesses. We do know that, older persons with disabilities and chronic illnesses suffer more than older persons who are able to stand up, fight for themselves, and fend for themselves. And one of the facilities I'm talking about now, that I've just referred to now, is a facility in Limpopo where older persons are in fact housed. And these older persons are having disabilities, and they have been abused, and they do not have, they've also been maltreated. Issues of malnutrition are also there because they can't move from where they are. They rely on others to assist them. Now, Section 26 has been tightened by including a 48-hour time frame for investigation of abuse of an older person. We do have the protocol on the management of abuse of older persons, and this protocol remains in force. It serves as a guidance in terms of what procedures and processes are to be followed when an older person is being removed, and the related timeframes are, of course, 48 hours. Section 28 has enabled us to insert a new subsection 7 for older persons to be allowed to be assisted by intermediaries and to testify or be cross-examined through an intermediary or in camera in the language they understand, for protection of older persons undergoing court processes. In this regard, we have facilitated engagements with the Department of Justice. It's important that we all understand that if substations do not manage the entry of our older persons when they are at substations to report any form of complaint, if that complaint has got to go through the justice system and there are gaps in terms of information, there are flaws in terms of how information was captured, then the case will not successfully go through the justice system, because the justice system will indicate the gaps and they won't be able to process the case. What is worse is that we run a risk of having many older persons continuing to be abused because there isn't enough information that has been supplied if it is about cases of abuse. And therefore, because the Minister of Social Development is expected to keep a register of perpetrators against older persons, it means that the register will not work for older persons. Because if these processes are not properly managed, then we run the risk of not having the cases succeed through the justice system. Now, we have started engagements with the Department of Justice to look at really changing and looking at different ways of managing cases of abuse older persons. When cases are reported, we are saying there must be support to such older persons. There must be legal services provided to such persons. They must be allowed to speak in their own languages. If they need to testify away from the courts, they should be allowed to do so, and they must receive such support so that they don't see the perpetrators, because some of the reasons why they fail to testify is because they're afraid of the perpetrators. And we're also saying they must testify in camera where no one can see them and they are away from the general public, because it is also degrading for them to be seen by the general public. So these are discussions underway, and this section is capturing this, and discussions are already underway with the Department of Justice, where we will even use remote places where older persons can go and sit away from the courts and be able to testify. And then Section 30 has enabled us to tighten the definition of physical abuse to include unlawful detention, medical sedation or shackling, deprivation of nutrition or medical care, neglect or exploitation of an older person in any manner. I've just talked about the state of facilities now. But I want to say, in some instances, because of the lack of an understanding relating to the mental health and well-being of older persons, when dementia and Alzheimer's kick in, many families and carers, they end up shackling older persons. They chain them and they go away and come back after hours. So we are saying that is abuse, and it should also be covered under this particular section. We have also amended the definition of sexual abuse under Section 33 to amend this definition so that we could cover psychological abuse and define harassment and also spiritual abuse. Now, Section 30 has also enabled us to insert a new subsection 5, which empowers a clerk of the court or registrar to provide the minister with the details of an offender, conviction, and sentence for the purposes of adding such information to the register that I've just indicated. The Minister of Social Development is expected to keep in terms of this legislation, so that we know precisely who abuses older persons, so that such people must be kept away from older persons at all times. Section 31 has enabled us to insert subsection 3, which provides that an application to the minister for the removal of a name from the register may be brought by any person after the criminal record of the offender whose name appears in the register has been expunged. And we are saying this process will have to be a very tight process. Procedures will have to be followed. Clearance will have to kick in before we can talk about any person's name being removed from such a register. I then move to Chapter 6, which is general and supplementary provisions, where Section 33 has been strengthened to enforce penalties in areas of non-compliance, issues of registration, monitoring and evaluation, and investigation of elder abuse cases, amongst others. And in this regard, we have also added new penalties for Section 13.5, 18.1, 18.9, and 18A4. And I've already talked about the importance of all these issues, and let me not belabor the point. Section 35 has also enabled us to deal with transitional provisions for community-based care and support services and residential facilities that were operated by individuals as sole proprietors. I've talked about the issue of juristic persons as well as trusts being now going to have to take responsibility for the provision of such services rather than sole proprietors. And we are saying as sole proprietors, immediately before this act took effect, they must, within 12 months from the date on which this on which this act will take effect, convert the sole proprietorship to the juristic person, so that we move away from individualistic approaches to the provision of services, but rather to trusts as well as juristic persons. Chairperson, thank you very much. Let me conclude my presentation here. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Legodo, for a very extensive briefing on the proposed amendments. Mr. Charles Jordan, any input from your side?
Yes, I would like to do a little short presentation Honourable Chair, if you don't mind. Okay, I'm going to talk about the Western Cape Province because all of you are from the Western Cape Province, and I think it's very important to look at our statistics. So in the Western Cape, we've got about 818,000 persons, that's older persons, in other words, 60 and above. And of that 818,000, 58, almost 60% are women. So julle vrouens leef langer as die mans. So it's very important to realize that when we look at the Western Cape. The scary thing that we all need to take note of, and Cyril, my colleague, has alluded to that, in the next 5 years, this province will have over 1 million older persons. 5 years. By 2050, we will have over 2 million older persons in this province. So that says something, en ek gaan dit in Afrikaans ook gou sommer sê, want ek sien nie soos baie van julle wat Afrikaans is en nie die ore goedjies het nie. Daar's 818,000 ouer persone in die Weskaap, 60 jaar en ouer, waarvan 58%, amper 60% vroue is. En dan by 2030, oor 5 jaar basies, gaan ons oor die miljoen mense in die Kaap wat oor 60 is. Dan by 2050, wat daar nou gelukkig nog 'n bietjie ver is, gaan dit oor die 2 miljoen mense wees in die Weskaap. So dit sê vir jou, die wette word aangepas, want ons moet begin te kyk, hoe gaan ons die dinge beplan? How are we going to deal with these issues of our population growing so rapidly in this age category? If I look at social services here in the Western Cape, I'm going to give you the budgets and tell you what we spend. So if you look at 21-22, that's about 3 years ago, we had a budget of 256 million rand. 236 miljoen rand het ons in die Weskaap om net op ouer persone te spandeer. Dit is actually nou nie meer so goed nie. Nou hierdie jaar, April 2024 wat nou begin het, is ons budget 217 miljoen. Oor die 25 miljoen rand het gedrop in ons budget. Dis baie. Ons befonds, we're funding 113 old age homes where SASSA people live. There's over 10,000 people living in those 113 old age homes. We do not fund everybody because we look more at funding the frail care first. Ons kyk eers om die mense wat bedlend is te befonds. Dan kyk ons na die mense wat 'n bietjie hulp nodig het. En dan gewoonlik die gesonde ou mensies, hulle kry nou nie eintlik geld nie van die staat af nie. Dan het ons ook 119 privaat ouerhuise. We've got 119 private old age homes where it is people that's not SASSA people. It's middle class and high income groups, so there's 119 old age homes. So you can see already in the Western Cape, we're one of the provinces with the most old age homes. We're talking of almost close to 300. Yeah, sorry, about 250. 250 old age homes. And in the private ones, you've got also almost 20,000 people living in that old age homes, in the private ones. Then we fund independent facilities, 10 of them, assisted living facilities, 15 of them, and Cyril talked about the independent and assisted living facilities. And then the one thing that quite a few of you might be very concerned about, wat van julle bekommerd oor mag wees, is die senior clubs, die service centers. Nou, ons befonds nou 144 service centers. Ons het op 'n stadium oor die 200 befonds. So die budgets het veroorsaak dat ons nie almal meer kon befonds het soos ons wou nie. Dan befonds ons ook Age in Action. Julle ken baie van julle ken vir Age in Action. Hulle het baie events and campaigns. They've got a lot of campaigns. We fund Ikamela Bantu, also very strong organization in Kalicha area, rendering very, very good services to older persons. We fund Dementia South Africa, die mense wat werk met die Alzheimer en die dementia. And then we also fund the Western Cape Older Persons Forum. So is 'n Older Persons Forum in die Weskaap, en ons befonds vir hulle ook. Net baie kort, very briefly, if I look at the amendments of this Older Persons Bill, there's a lot of things that's been done which we approve and support as the Western Cape Social Services. Ons ondersteun hierdie veranderinge. Want hierdie wet bring dinge in wat nie in die vorige wet was nie, wat dit baie sterker maak. And some of those stuff that is stronger is looking at quality services. It's looking at the registration of service centers, community plekke, die senior clubs. Heidiglik hoef jou klub nie geregistreer te word nie. Die ouer huise word geregistreer. Maar hier is baie mense wat senior centers begin en hulle abuse die ou mense in daai service centers. So as die plekke geregistreer word en die nuwe wet sê dat moet geregistreer word, dan kan ons beter quality check op hulle. Dan saam met al die goed, ons sal meer capacity moet kry. We will have to get more capacity in the province to implement this act fully. We cannot do this with the same budget, the same amount of people. We've got to pull in more people, more departments, and this is what's so good about the amendment bill. It talks to health. Dit praat met die polisie, dit praat met justice, die howe. Dit praat met al die departments wat deel moet word om die issues aan te spreek. Dan is ek amper klaar. Ek wil nie te lank praat want ek weet baie van julle wil graag ook julle ding sê. A lot of you still also want to say your thing. So the one thing that I'm going to highlight is that we support very strongly that carers must be trained, and it is in the Older Persons Bill. The new one, it is in there. These people must go get training, they get certificates to say, you are now a trainer or a caregiver that can look after older persons. Right now, Department of Health have home-based carers, maar hulle kom nie gereeld nie. Hulle kom so 1 keer 'n week, and they don't only look only at the older persons. Hulle kyk na mense wat HIV/AIDS het, hulle kyk na kinders wat disabled is. So hierdie carers moet getrain word. They must get certificates so that only they can work with older persons, nobody else. Then I've mentioned what I support a lot is the service centers, that we must register them, that we must monitor them. Then also the assisted living and independent living. Nou, die van julle wat nie weet wat is assisted and independent living, dis iets anderste as 'n ouer huis. Hy het nie nurses nie. Daar bly so 6 ou mense saam in 'n huis. Dis jou independent. I'm going to say it in English. Those of you that do not know what's an independent or assisted living, it's different from an old age home. Independent and assisted living is where you've got a few people, older persons, 6 or 10 of them living in a house together. So those places needs to be registered as well. So moet hulle ook opcheck. Then the one thing that's important for me, I'm seeing because of budgets going down, I'm seeing a drop of quality of service in the old age homes. Ek sien dinge begin te happen in die ouer huise. Die kos, die medisyne, ons praat nie eers van die nappies nie. So dit is belangrik dat ons saam moet werk met health en al die mense, that we work with health and those kinds of departments that provide healthcare services and provide the nappies. I do see here is some old age homes that mushroom up here from nobody, from nowhere. You go into a town and there's a house and somebody's opened a house and they got like 10 old people in there, not registered. They take their SASSA money. They get treated bad in there. They don't get good food. Now, there's a few of those places we've picked up and we closed them down. This act, and it's difficult to close down because the previous act did not help us with the closure of it. If I want to close, I must have an act. I must have, ek moet 'n wet hê wat vir my sê maak die plek toe. Nou die nuwe ene sê maak hom toe. So dit gaan help om daai mense wat so kansse vat, that people that takes chances to look after old people, saying out of the goodness of their heart, but in the meantime it's because they're making money. It's for them that I'm very glad that the act is looking at that. And then the last two things that I'm very happy about is abuse. We know what's going on. Maar julle bly stil. Ja, want julle wil nie praat daaroor nie. Steek dit weg van die community af. Because you're afraid, what is the people going to say if I tell them my child has thrown me out of my own house, he's taken over my own house, he's taking my SASSA money to use it for drugs. I'm standing in long queues here by SASSA. It's raining. Some days it's not working, the system. I go to the post office and then I don't get always my money immediately. That's the stuff that will be taken on. But the abuse is the thing that concerns me the most. We must do more awareness. We must do more awareness to tell the people, where do you go to for help? Wat doen jy as jy in so 'n situasie sit? Waar mense beskof is met jou, emotionally drain jou. And we're not talking about physical abuse only. There's different forms of abuse. There's emotional abuse. Vat jou kos en gooi jou kos wat jy gemaak het vir die kleinkinders, gooi dit op die vloer. That's part of emotional abuse. Hulle steel jou geld. It's financial abuse. So julle moet weet die verskillende abuses en ons moet praat daaroor. Ons moet awareness doen. En dan kry ons gevalle, what this act is supporting is that if we have to remove or help you in emergency, that we can take you to a place out of the house. It's not always the good thing, because if that person stays in your house, he must actually go, not you. But you do get situations where it is the best to take the older person out for their own safety. We can deal with the perpetrator in that house. Let the police lock him up. But we need to have places where we can take people, even if it's just for a few nights, to stabilize, to support, to give some psycho counseling, some social work counseling support so you can talk about it. We need those places. Currently, we don't have that places. And this Older Persons Act is supporting that. And then the last thing from my side, then I'm finished. The Act talks about older persons. And in the previous stuff, we forgot about older persons have disabilities too. Older persons are on chronic medication, blood pressure, diabetic tablets, all that good. And this act is looking at how do the family take care? How do we address issues? You might be 60, then you're an older person, but now something goes wrong and you land up in a wheelchair. So you're an older person and you're disabled. And people forget about that. Then we've got disabled people that's born young with mental issues, with physical issues, deaf and blind. They also become 60. So you sit with a group of people that's disabled and becoming 60. So now they're becoming older persons too. So those kinds of services needs to be sharpened up as well. Ons moet daai dienste ook verbeter. Dan mense vergeet van daai dual issue. Die act kyk na die goeders. So as 'n laaste gedagte, as a last thought, I personally and my department, the Western Cape Social Development, we support these changes. It is very progressive. It is very good. It has been consulted widely with other departments, more than previous times. Al wat ek sê is, ons moet meer mense kry, meer geld kry om dit te implement. Baie dankie. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Baie dankie meneer Jordan. Ek dink dit gee goeie konteks aan wat mevrou Legorde aan ons meegedeel het. Dis net 'n jammerte. Ek dink my kollegas sal met my saamstem as ons hierdie voorlegging ook by die ander 5 areas kon gehad het. Dit sou soveel meer konteks gegee het aan die voorgestelde veranderings, maar dit word opreg waardeer. Ek dink net u gaan so dalk bietjie in die moeilikheid wees. Ek sien nie verwys na ou mense.
Dan vir my sê, want al die jare sê ek maar ou mensies, maar nou, ek is een van ook 'n ou mensie, want ek is ook amper daar. Maar as die woord verkeerd is, moet julle my reg help.
Baie dankie daarvoor. Ons waardeer. Dames en here, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your indulgence. At this point, we are going to open the floor for input. You can see we are quite a big audience this afternoon, and we really want to provide the opportunity to each and everyone. U moet nou nie verniet gekom het, u wil die stem laat hoor het. So ons wil graag vir u die geleentheid gee. So net 'n bietjie van huisreëls. Ons gaan 'n tydsbeperking op die inset gaan ons plaas van 3 minute. So as jy asseblief net saam met ons sal werk om te hou by die 3 minute asseblief. So u is welkom om te sit net waar u is. As u voel u wil staan, is u welkom om so te doen. U sal sien hier so 'n knoppie op die bokant. U kan hom net druk sodat u inset dan nou opgeneem kan word vir die rekord. So ek dink ons het nou baie gepraat gehad van hierdie kant van die vertrek. Ek gaan by hierdie kant van die vertrek begin. En dan as daar enige van die persone is, if there's any one of the members of the public or stakeholders that are seated in the gallery, unfortunately there's no mics in the gallery, but you are also now most welcome to find your way down to the chambers, and then we will make sure that you have access to a mic in order for you to give your input. So you may make your way to the chambers, please. Enige een aan hierdie kant van die vertrek wat graag 'n inset wil lewer? Mevrou Kiewits, ek erken vir u. Nog iemand hierdie kant af? U is tweede. Dis 1, 2, is dit net die 2 persone aan hierdie kant? Only the 2 persons on the side? Going once? En daar's 'n dame aan die agterkant. U moet ook asseblief net voor u nou u inset gee, net u naam en die van en watter organisasie u verteenwoordig, your name, your surname, which organization you represent. As u hier is as 'n lid van die publiek, dan kan u ook net so meld asseblief. U 3 minute begin. Baie dankie mevrou Kiewits.
Good afternoon and thank you very much. Damaris Kiewits, and I'm with the Sisterhood in Cravenby. Thanks for the amendments to the bill, long overdue. My question is that you have engaged other departments. However, we still see at our health facilities the professional abuse of older persons. They get appointments for a specific time, and you can tell an older person not to come at 7 o'clock, but to come at 10 o'clock. We've asked the department, do not give an older person an appointment at 12. It doesn't work for them. And especially our older persons with dementia. So we know that this implementation is going to take a while. In the medium term, what can we put in place? Because things needs to be put in place for our older persons, please.
Thank you very much. Ma'am, you may proceed.
Good afternoon. I'm Cecilia Otto from Mitchell's Plain. I present my community. My concern is the sick elderly person, they can't walk, it's bedridden. needs to get out to SASSA for the disability maybe, or for the pension to be registered. But now they struggle to get out to SASSA. Isn't there anything that can be put in place for that person to be helped and not to stretch so much? How are they going to get out by SASSA? Because you need to be in the queue at 5 o'clock already to be helped. Does it get to 11 o'clock and you're not helped? They come out as simple as that and say, it's cut off, the time is, they done working with a specific bracket of people because they've got days that they work with the old people, with the pension, the children, and all that. So if you get there after 6, then you're going to stand there without being helped. And you sit, you're in a wheelchair, and it's not easy to sit in a wheelchair for the whole day, even at our clinics. It's a big problem. I've been on the health committee en ek het op tone getrap en ek het koppe gestamp. And they called you priority, maar nou kom hulle uit, they do the 3 hours, but then you're still there by 12 o'clock. And you're already there from 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So please, if something can be put into place, help our old people that's struggling to be helped at our health facilities and at SASSA. It's a big headache. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Otto. Ma'am at the back.
Ek is Alita Maas van Parel van Fountain Abou. Ek wil asseblief vra, is daar nie help vir ons ou mense soos hulle sê, dis as die seniors, as hulle miskien die toelaag gaan haal, waar die kinders so hulle ouers, soos Inorees in die voorkant gesê het, is altyd so 'n hartseer saak as jy sien hoe kinders met hulle ouers werk by die huis. Is daar nie miskien help vir ons met dit, asseblief tog?
Baie dankie mevrou. Ek erken die dame aan die agterkant. Jy mag maar. Wanneer ek praat nou met die dame met die wit kopdoek.
Het ek nog gepraat?
Net so oomblikie dat ons net orde kry asseblief. Dame, het u nou van bo af gekom om 'n inset te lewer? Net so oomblik, ek sal nou vir u geleentheid gee. Net die dame aan die agterkant asseblief.
Molo Chairperson Philanda. Good everyone. I'd like to ask about, I'm from Bekweni Public. I'd like to ask those pensioners who more than 80 years they can't walk, they can't do nothing. What about the government, the health department can give them the tablets? Because sometimes they cannot even walk and they must stand there until 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and they cannot have their special treatment so that they can take them to their houses and bring them the tablets in their houses. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And just state your name and surname for the record, please.
I'm Nondumiso Nikani Tasana.
Very
Thank
much.
you.
All the way from Paul. Ma'am, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charlotte Smith. I am a registered nurse working at Sensit Rest Haven in the Strand. First of all, I would like to say that we are community-based old age home and facility, and we take care of the destitute and mainly the residents who are only getting a SASSA. Yeah, so first I would like to say thank you to the Department of Social Development, specifically Ms. Chona for the assistance and for helping us with the SDIP. Also, I would like to say thank you to the Minister, Jaco Long, who came to visit Sensit, and for listening to us, spending time with us, and for giving us exposure on social media so that the community can be more aware of us. So in 2002, just after the COVID situation, we were in a huge financial situation there at Census, to a point where we couldn't pay our staff the full salary that they needed, and yeah, that was a very difficult time, and that was because of all the operational cost during the COVID situation. And what I would like to say is that currently we are registered, but only temporary. And the reason for that is that we have a building that is not declared safe. And we've got building plans, and we already submitted it for the safety and for the building. And we're waiting for the municipality to approve it. And also, I would like to say the reason why we were in this financial constraint was because that we were our municipality bill was about 500,000 rand at the time when the new management took over. So we worked very hard. We got draw up a plan, a business plan, and we started to go to social media. We started to have functions. We did a lot of things to make the community aware of our needs and our requirements. And then now lately, I think in 2024 was for the whole year so far, we our staff received their full salary. Now we are having a bit of a relief, but we're not there yet. Therefore, we applied for funding. And we would really appreciate it if everybody who is here can just go to our social pages and share it and make the community aware of our needs and our requirements.
Thank you.
May I add something?
You may
We
add
would
and
like
conclude.
to appoint 6 new carers, because just so that we can comply to the norms and standards that is required as per the regulations. So we are happy, we are blessed at Census, and it is, and we wouldn't want to stop giving to our community.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Much appreciated. And then if people at this side do not mind, as you are seated, the people that came from the gallery are now standing. If I can just please give them an opportunity to address the committee, please. Most welcome, ma'am. Move to a mic. Excuse me, ma'am. Can you please just switch on your mic?
Is it on now?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. I'm Estelle de Beer from semi-rural area, Clippyville, Philadelphia, and Santa I just want to echo that what that lady was talking about, SASSA. We have a few elderly people that really need home-based care. And the home-based care only comes around maybe once a week or maybe every second week. The other thing is by SASSA, that people are bedridden. They can't go to SASSA to go and apply for somebody to care for them because the families really struggle. So you have to take that person to the clinic, to SASSA. And I just want to ask, is there no other way that people can be helped? That even SASSA can come out and come and check and see, or the hospice people that is working with the clinics, because it's very sad, but it's very frustrating to see it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Beer.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Faiza Karim. I am connected to the Northwood Diabetic Club. I'm also connected to the Mitchell's Plain Network Opposing Abuse. We, with the Diabetic Club, we find that the many challenges that our elderly have. Yes, somebody said they call us old menses, but yes, some people call us recycled teenagers, but really we are not recycled, we are upcycled. Yeah, I really also want to applaud the bill. I have seen there's many clauses has been covered, and I appreciate that fact. What I wanted to bring under the attention is that with the old people standing at the hospitals and how difficult it becomes when you are old and you cannot explain, and the nurses sometimes doesn't understand what it is that the old person want. We see them sitting all day, and sometimes they don't get help. So yes, I understand there's a big need, but and I also understand that it has been said that there's more departments or people needs to come in. The other thing that I want to highlight is also the older people that is being abused by their own children with this drug thing. And the thing is, if this people comes out of, or can I say, if these people needs to be taken out of their houses, the police will come there, and then you see the son, the grandchild standing with a gun, and then police can't do anything. And we see so many shootings and stuff. So at the courts, we also find the thing where old people needs to appear because they have a appointment at court against the perpetrator, and then that old person can't remember the date, or the child that is the perpetrator or the grandchild or whoever it is in the house keeps that older person at home. So that person loses out on that appointment in court, and sometimes it just falls through the the gap. So those people are not even being seen again. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. And because we come from a society, which I'll explain, and we see that if people needs to come out, they're too scared. They say straight, no, we're not driving in Mitchell's Plain. So yeah, we have a problem. So when it becomes by older people, the problem is much bigger. So yeah, if there can be something done, and I thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your input.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Michael.
My name is Pokazi. I work for Ikamva Labantu. Thank you for the amendment of the bill. But I just have one concern: transportation of seniors from home to whatever facility that is there. We have two projects in one project. We have home-based seniors, we have club-based seniors. So it's easy for the club-based seniors to go to the clubs, but it's difficult for us to transport the seniors from home to the clinic, to SASA, to whatever the senior wants to go to. So can you guys look at that? Because when we've tried to go around by daily ride, but it's a process, so we don't know what to do. But we are trying our level best, but we don't have the budget to do all of those things. So transport is the main issue for us for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your input. And after we've dealt with the last speaker, I will ask the national and the provincial department to provide response. Let's move to this side. I just want to make double sure. Is there anyone else still that came from the gallery? No one? Thank you, sir, at the back. You, sir, yes?
Good afternoon, all. I'm Mr. Hartley from Strand Care Service Center in the Strand. We also, as Strand Care, support the bill. I would also like to make use of this opportunity to convey our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to the financial support of the Western Cape Department of Social Development to us. We also would like to convey thanks to the following persons for assisting and doing excellent work with us: Ms. Tonga, Mr. Gerswin, Mr. Ayanda, Mr. Keith, April, as well as the other people that work behind the scene in the Western Cape. I must say we're doing an excellent job here in the Western Cape. And as well, Vanessa, with the invite that she has sent to us. We as Strand Care have four main parts. It's the meals, it's our transport, our healthcare, and our recreation. Now, at the moment, as we heard, the food is very expensive and everything is going up. So we need assistance more, especially with the transport. Our people are traveling from far and we have to take them to hospital or to payday or to the club. And we need more funding if possible. And then in conclusion, I just want to bring, we just want to bring a little sunshine in the daily and lonely life of our vulnerable elderly persons. We know our country experience of financial constraints and that the economics can do better, but we don't ask for much, just a little. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think during a time where a lot is going on en ek bedoel daar's baie uitdagings, is dit wonderlik om te hoor dat daar nog iewers tussen alles ook 'n dankie is. Ons sê vir u groot waardering daarvoor. Anyone else on this side, please? Lady at the back, I recognize you. And then in the same row, there is someone and the two ladies just in front of you. You may proceed, ma'am. The lady that side. The lady that side, and then you. Okay. Sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Irma Wolscott. I'm from Scottsville, Kraaifontein. And firstly, I would like to thank the Department of Social Development for this opportunity. And then I want to talk about the youth of yesterday, which is the elderly. If there's any way that there can be an increase, because I'm also a pensioner and the money it's just you can't live with that money. And I'm sure there's people here who will agree with me. And then also I would like to talk about the day hospital. The services there is very pathetic. You go to the day hospital and then you have to speak to a security. The security is not a doctor. He's not a doctor, but he will direct you now. You have to sit and wait until it's your turn. If you have an appointment, like I had an appointment on Wednesday, last Wednesday, for physio. I came there early because I feel that you have to be early there. I can't walk 10 o'clock from home. And my time that I normally walk is 7 o'clock. If my appointment is 10 o'clock, I walk 7 o'clock. And I was told I have to wait, which is not right. They must design you to a certain area where you have to sit and wait. And also the waiting area that you have to sit and wait there. I think something must really be done there. And the toilets, it's not hygienic. Really not hygienic. And a person gets sick there. Also the services that you get. I went with my sister. My sister is staying in Ravensmead. I went with my sister one time for her appointment at the day hospital. And there was an elderly guy sitting in that wheelchair. He's been waiting since this morning, since 6 o'clock the morning, to be helped by a professional nurse or whatever the case is. And then the sister told him he must just sit and wait until it's his turn. And his wife went again to the sister. She asked the sister, but my husband is sick. He's almost dying.
but nothing was taken notice of. And then when me and my sister came out, and then we heard that the man has passed on in the day hospital. It's not right. So something must really be done with these day hospitals and stuff.
Thank you.
And I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wilskut. We captured the essence of your input. Ma'am at the back.
Thank you. My name is Loretta Mini. I am from the Overcomers Community Support Group, and I also belong to a senior club in Mitchell's Plain, but I'm here on behalf of the support group. I just like to know, I like what this gentleman spoke about. I'm not quite sure what his name is, but thank you so much for bringing up all the things that you did. The one thing I'd like to point out, and I'd like to know from you what I can do or what we can do as a community that, we're talking about old age homes, frail care homes. I do know of frail care homes where people are being cared for beautifully. I know of frail care homes where people are being treated horrendously. I walk with a crutch, but I've actually, together with a few senior clubs, marched and demonstrated in front of a frail care facility. It is hard so to see what the facility looked like. I was requested by the leader of our group to say something, and what I spoke about was the grass that was growing to the height of the windows. You couldn't even see any windows from the road. And a week after that, after we demonstrated, the grass was cut. But I think what they actually did, and then on another occasion, we went to the facility and two of our members was going to give them a program of what we are about to do, because we were actually threatened with court action. And we're not scared of these people, because if you don't treat an elderly person the way you want to be treated, then what are you doing there looking after old people? You know, I know of two people in that facility. They were fetched on a weekend to go and spend time with their family. And the condition they were in, they were reeking of wee. They weren't cleaned or anything like that. They have one leg amputated. And I just believe that whatever we can do, I'm also an elderly person. And my kids will not let me go to an institution. My dad was 91 when he passed away, and I actually looked after him. And he begged me, he said to me, Mom, Loretta, please don't send me to an old age home. And I said, Daddy, I will never do that. And I just thank God for giving me the strength. I have already had a stroke at the time, but I did everything for him in my power that I could do. Likewise, my children did for him as well. And I would just, hear how children speak to their grandparents. And I can give you so many stories, but I just want to urge everybody, every one of the elderly person here, you don't have to take abuse from your children.
Yeah.
You don't have to take abuse from your grandchildren. My father was 91 before he passed away. And I can tell you that he was in control of his house. He didn't allow anybody to take advantage of him. And, I just wish that every senior has the opportunity to do this. And for the children that look after their parents, please take good care of your parents, because the reason why my dad reached the age of 91, he was obedient to his mother and his father. And he professed that when you are obedient, and I mean the Bible also speaks of it, if you are obedient to your parents, you will lengthen your days, God says.
Thank you.
I thank you very much for giving me an opportunity
Sure.
to say my say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Much appreciated. And us as the committee will obviously, after the sessions, each session, we do some resolutions and recommendations, of which we haven't done at the past 5 sessions, but we will, now that we conclude today, we'll do that. And I think something that will help is definitely a type of a dialogue between the youngsters of today and the youth of yesterday, because they certainly have got a lot to learn. From our older people. Ma'am in green. Excuse me.
Yes, I'm Veronica Smith from Mitchell's Plain Advice Office, a senior, social senior group. Okay, good. The thing is, first thing that I want to address this is section 25 about senior citizen that is abused, that will be removed from a property from her house. That is a bit crappy. What happened then after the 6 months, then she have to have come back to the same environment. That's the other thing. But then if she's going to return, she's going to come back to a DOP. Do you know what's a DOP? An empty cell. Because the children is going to strip her house like anything. So please, that need to be addressed and look at. The other thing is SASSA. Oh, yeah. SASSA, when it was voting time, they came out for the bedridden people to come and get their crosses. Why can't they come out now for the people to get their cards, for the people to suffer? Because there's lots of problems in our areas. And they come to us that also have problems. I have a cell phone that costs a lot of, I must feed him. And then I need to phone SASSA and they never picked up. And if they picked up, they say, hang on. If I hang on, my airtime is gone. 30 rand. I mean, that is not on. Then another thing is the clinics, the day hospital. How on earth can they tell you you have to be in a queue by 4 o'clock? Which public transport is driving on 4 o'clock in the morning? Sorry to say that, but my own cousin was raped, brutally raped, a young lady. She's bedridden for how many years now? Because I put something even in her, she can't even walk. From going to the hospital at that early hours. She's only a senior citizen, I think by now. I think she's a few years older than me, not a lot, perhaps 3 years older than me. But that has happened in our areas for trying to get service. The clinics, they do not help us. They have a baby clinic, a D clinic, a day clinic, but they haven't got a senior citizens clinic that people can go to. Because really they are the nearest at our they are in our facility. So why can't we have like a slot in there that they can look after us? And then another thing is the tablets. People have to go to queues and stand and wait for their tablets. They used to have like stations that we can get the tablets by some clinics, by some churches or places. But now in all areas, they do not have it anymore. So it's really a struggle out there. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And that is your belt. Perfect timing. Ma'am, next to you, please.
Oh.
All right, I'll go to my neighbor. Thank you very much to Social Development. My name is Deborah Bailey.
and I'm also from the Mitchell's Plain Advice Senior Citizen Social Group. I am in total agreement of what everybody has spoken and of the points the Chief Director has spoken of. However, there are a few things that is of a concern. That is the attitude and service of some government officials. You go to a government department and SASSA and Home Affairs because they are in the hotspot. We are the senior citizens. We have earned services and respect with dignity. We've earned it over the years. And in my opinion, nothing less than that is accepted. But you go there and the government officials think they have arrived. And I'm not saying everybody, they've arrived. They give you attitude as if it's a handout. Now at our age, we don't need handouts. You don't even give the street person a plate of food as a handout. You go there at 4 in the morning. That must be looked after. We've had a meeting once with the officials of SASSA, and they couldn't even give shelter. That was the concern for the senior citizens. Too much red tape. Now, I am stating this, red tape. Red tape can be broken, cancelled, taken away by the powers that be if they want to. Because it is not in the budget, it's not in the financial, this and that. We've earned it. It should have been in the budget oh so long ago. Senior citizens stand. Those who are disabled must stand or sit or even sit on the pavement. It's a reality, people. 4 in the morning on the pavement, winter, summer, wind. There's no shelter. That must be looked at. When you get inside, now we are in it's poverty, socioeconomic conditions. People have to take a taxi and another taxi. So they walk because that money can buy a bread. They sit there for the whole day, come inside, are told, ma'am or sir, you must have A and B forms. Say your ID and your marriage certificate or whatever. Just to come back and be told you must have another 2 forms. Just to come back and be told you must have another form. Now, really now, who is in grade R and who have served the country? So that is a great concern. And that is for SASSA and Home Affairs. Our senior citizens cannot be treated like that. Cannot. There's no excuse, budget or red tape. Please, I want to see that we are treated with dignity when we go for these services. And then everybody else has spoken about the day hospitals and the disrespect and all of that. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So I recognize you and then the lady with the black blazer. Sir, in the wheelchair, you had your hand up earlier on. Then you and then the gentleman at the back. In that order, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Charles Harris. I'm from Paarl. I'm here on behalf of Fountain of Hope. It's an organization, NPO, working with children from 4 years and the senior citizens 80 years. So we are a non-profit organization. And I don't know why the people don't talk about the children. Because those days I was a children, there was, let me talk Afrikaans. Toe ek 'n kind was daar streng ouers en gehoorsame kinders. En nou is dit omgedraai. Nou kry ons streng kinders en gehoorsame ouers. Ons ouers wil nie van die goed praat van ons kinders nie. Van hulle is bang, baie van ons kinders, hulle hanteer ons geldsake by SASSA. Dan die geld is nog nie eers in my rekening, dan het hy al sy plek. So ons as ouers soms laat dit toe dat ons kinders die goed doen met ons. En ek dink net ons ouers moet na ons kyk. Ons kinders sê hulle kyk na ons, maar hulle kyk eintlik na ons nie. As net vir ons geldjie, hulle abuse ons. En ons wil nie daaroor praat nie. Ons wil maar die goedjie mooi goedjies praat. Ons moet sê, laat ons kan gehelp word. My kind, ek wil net gou vir u sê, ek is 'n spiritual worker by die gevangenis, by die correctional service. En ek was laasweek daar, toe is my hart so seer, daar's 'n man van 80 jaar, meneer Kiri. Nou vra ek, meneer, wat doen jy hier? Hy sê, ja, kom aan, naby Pydag, daar kon staan sy vir hom, klap my, daar bel sy die polisie. En dus, ek kan nie eens verstaan hoe ons mense, as jy sien, as 20% mense wat 60 en ouer is, daar in die gevangenis. Ek was nog vanoggend daar. Maar wat ek sê, ons laat dit toe. Van ons is bang, as ons nou met die kind gaan praat, gaan hy nie vir sy geldjie Vrydag hê nie. Maar ons moet ons voet neersit en sê, eer jou moeder en jou vader en jou dae sal vir jou verleng word. En thank you.
Baie dankie meneer Harris van die Parel. Mevrou?
Baie dankie dat ons 'n voorreg het, dat julle vir ons 'n voorreg gegee het vanmiddag. Ek kan nie so lekker Engels praat nie, maar hulle het gesê Afrikaans is oké. Maar ek is bly vanmiddag, ek is hier en ek is bly, ek bid laat julle luister en iets doen. Hier was baie dinge gesê, baie dinge is gedoen, maar daar is nog ver van baie af. Vanmiddag wil ek vir julle sê, ek het een oggend hospitaal toe gegaan. Toe kry ek iemand wat, ek het nou gekyk en toe sak ek my kop en ek kyk weer op en toe sê hy het nou lus gehad om vir my so 'n harde klap te gee. Ek dink by myself, wat het ek gedoen? Dis die tyd wat ons moet opstaan na die hospitaal toe. Ons moet 6 o'clock of 7 o'clock opstaan na die hospitaal toe. Die polisiestasie is 'n tree weg van die town center af. Die ou mense, daar's 'n ou vrou wat gerop is van 1.800 rand. Sy het dit in haar sak gehad in 'n lap handsak, in 'n lap klap het sy dit gehad en is uitgehaal. Toe sy by die toonbank kom, toe sy niks in haar klap nie. Maar ek wil weet, waar is die polisie? Hoekom is daar niemand die selfs in die oggend wanneer jy hospitaal toe of Sassa toe gaan? Daar is jongens wat daar teen die spoor bly. Daar's jongens wat daar by Sassa se brug lê, wat die ou mense target. Nie net die ou mense nie, maar die mense wat gaan werk. Dit wil ek nou vanmiddag vir julle bring om te vra, waar is die polisie? Hoekom kan hulle nie nou werk doen nie? Die ou mense moet opstaan en lang ure gaan sit, soos die dames hier gesê het. Hulle gaan hospitaal toe en hulle moet daar gaan sit vir ure. En my punt is, as jy kyk in die oggend wanneer dit sassapy is of kinderpy is, dan is die kinders rondom die ouers. Maar jy sien hulle nie wanneer hulle hospitale toe moet, die ouers toe moet hospitale toe moet neem nie. Sien jy nie 'n kind rondom hy ouer nie. Selfde soos 'n dame gesê het, sy kry die bus, sy's in die bus op pad Kaap toe. Sy sê die busdrywer stop daar by Grote Skuur. As 'n hele klomp ou mense in, daar's nie 'n kind daar in hy bus om hy ou mense te help. Hulle kan nie eens opstaan nie. Toe vra sy vir die drywer, waar toe gaan die bus? Gaan die bus straight Kaap toe of gaan hy op Grote Skuur toe? Toe sê sy nee. Toe sê die drywer nee, die bus gaan Groot Skuur toe. Maar ek meen, waar is die kinders wat dan in die oggend wanneer dit sassapy is hulle so lief vir daai ou mense. Hulle weet nie hoe om hy ou mense te hou nie. En die ander ding is, kan die regering nie opstaan en strenger reëls maak dat hierdie drugdealers vir ewig in hy tronke sit. Ons mense gaan dood, ons kinders word doodgeslaan, hulle besteel die ouers wat gaan werk. Al hierdie dinge, die regering het swak kom word om hierdie mense gevangenes te hou. Hulle is vandag uit, hulle moord vandag iemand, môre is hulle uit die tronk uit. Wat se ding is daai? Hoekom bou hulle nie net vir die moordenaars 'n plek op hulle eie en die diewe op hulle eie? Want die mense, al hierdie kinders vertel, daar is die werkie, dis nonsens. Ons groot mense gaan staan op om te gaan werk. Ek sien daar's mense wat in die town center bly, wat bokse bymekaar maak vir 'n stukkie brood. Wat sê die Bybel? As jy nie werk nie, mag jy nie eet nie. Nou hoekom gebeur hierdie dinge? Want ons, soos die meneer gesê het, ons ouers laat toe, laat ons kinders ons geld te vat. Hulle laat toe, laat hulle ons huise vat en verkoop. Hulle verkoop al hierdie goede en binne in ons patte in. Bly mense, hulle weet ons kinders is op drugs, dan koop hulle nog steeds hy goed. Dis wat my so kwaad maak. Hulle weet hy kinders steel jou goed. Wanneer jy uitstap by die huis, steel hulle jou goed. Hulle gaan werkie, maar hulle steel om hy drugs te vul. Is daar nie 'n uitweg? Is daar regtig nie 'n uitweg nie, want ek weet die Here het vir julle hier gesit vanmiddag om te sê hoe voel ons oor die regering. Dis mos nie reg nie, dis verkeerd. Ons soek hulp en ons kan ook iets doen. Want daar is baie mense wat daar buite is, ouers wat huil, hoe hulle goed gesteel word. Hulle werk hard, hulle werk jare en in 'n dag se tyd word hy goed weggesteel van hulle. Hulle gaan om die draai, dan verkoop hulle daai ding wat R1000 is, gaan verkoop hulle dit vir R10 of R20. Dis mos nie reg nie.
Baie dankie mevrou.
Okay.
Net u naam en van asseblief.
My naam is Delia Lou.
Delia?
Ja. Ek is van Leedwood Mitchellsplein. Ek verteenwoordig Leedwood se seniors club. Ek is so excited, want ek wil niks mis. Julle gaan nou lag, maar ek wil niks mis nie, want as ek by die huis kom, dan dink ek, hoekom het ek nie dit gesê en dit
Orde
gesê?
asseblief.
Mense, julle moenie lag nie, dis ernstig. Ons is op 'n ernstige, ons kan nie so lewe nie, soos die man gesê het. Ons ouers het 18 kinders gehad. Die kinders was almal respectable kinders. Vandag het jy 1 of 2 kinders, hy kinders vertrap so. Maar dankie dat julle
Baie dankie. Dit is baie moeilik om die ouers van daar stil te maak. Dit is maar net 'n ingebore respek wat jy het. En 'n mens kan hoor die hart vanmiddag dat jy wil nie eintlik hê jy moet ophou praat nie, want dit is wat ons wil hoor. So baie dankie vir u inset. Meneer, u is welkom.
I good.
Maria.
I good.
Memory.
I don't have a lot to say, but I would just want to say something. I'm Willem Galan from Northwood Diabetic Club in Plain. To my input in this, the government, for a people that is disabled and for people that is a diabetic, it is so expensive to live. And how expensive it is for any diabetic product, for any disability product that you need to buy, but you need it as a person to live with. But this is so expensive. You can't buy it. How do the government look at it? Anything is expensive. Healthy food that diabetic people must eat, is expensive. Things that the disabled people that need to use is expensive. I think that you must look into that because there's something wrong there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Your input is much appreciated. Die meneer, daar's u. Dankie.
Good afternoon. My name is Vincent Alexander. I'm an HR and IR generalist. I'm also a senior for 8 years. So you can calculate how old I am or how young I am. I just want to compliment this room or the DSD people that brought this application here or the amendments to the bill, because there's one thing that I, as an HR, have noticed, that we have to register these other organizations that are caregivers or care centers for the older people. It's very vital. And the training that goes with it is so important. We can complain about other things here, but if we don't get our house in order, get our policies in order, get our constitution in order, comply with those things, I've noticed that a lot of problems that have happened is because people themselves who run this organization don't do the right thing. They employ people. They flaunt with the Labor Relations Act. They don't deduct UIF for the people. They don't see the labor relations, basic conditions of employment. A lot of these things we need the training for. And in the organization that I am in, I've inherited a crisis. The previous people had abused the place. They didn't apply to any policies. DSD didn't even come and check whether they were complying. There was lies and lies and lies. We need those regulations. We need those checkups. We need those people to be in line. If we don't do that, we can complain till we blue in the face. But I ask everyone here who's running a center or an old age home, please treat your staff, treat everyone according to the law. We all have rights. And if we don't get the training for our people, we can't expect our people to have people skills and to have business skills and to have financial skills, because we need to audit. We need to do a number of things to comply with DSD. None of these people have even a background. I've made sure that I've headhunted a bookkeeper, qualified, to serve on my board voluntary, because it's fundamental that I have someone who I can trust, who will follow the rule of law. And I ask everyone here and the people that did it, please keep doing this so that we can learn more and we can grow more. A lot of people are complaining here. I feel for that old lady that have to go stand in Sasaku at 6 o'clock. I've been there. I've taken people there before 6 and they still wouldn't help at 4 o'clock. So there's so many issues that we need to really up our game for our older persons. Now that I am an older person, but still active, able to do a lot more than most people my age, I'm able to give back. I'm able to tutor. I'm able to mentor. I'm able to do a number of things. We cannot just sit back and hope that DSD will do everything for us or the government will do everything. We have to do ourselves. Training is in our hands. And we must also take our people to training, get people to volunteer, to train, and to build capacity within these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I have granted opportunity on my left side, as well as on my right-hand side, as well as people in the gallery. Ms. Legodo, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. If you can kindly respond. Mr. Charles Jordan, would you want 5 minutes as well?
Thank you. But 5 is fine, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Legodo.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think I would be failing in my duty if I am not going to acknowledge the depth and level of appreciation that came out of today's session.
Yep.
It really took a completely different direction. Yes. And to that effect, it is indeed encouraging when you hear those that we really seek to serve, and we go all out of our way to make sure that we reach out to them, appreciating those little initiatives of government. And to that effect, allow me to thank each and everyone that spoke this afternoon, but also to thank those that are in attendance. Because indeed, if they were not in agreement, we could have seen people rising or indicating that they are not comfortable with the input that is being made. So thank you very much to all of you. Before I respond, I will try to be as quick as it is possible from my side. Let me talk to the issues of SASSA comprehensively so that we deal with those and we leave them. And I want to firstly start by saying, over the recent months, we had public hearings that were led by the Portfolio Committee on Social Development during the 6th administration. I need to indicate that the issues that have been raised here this afternoon are some of the issues that emerged during the public hearings. In my presentation earlier on, I did mention that we were called back by the Portfolio Committee after the public hearings. We were given an opportunity to retreat and go and reflect on the issues that were raised by older persons throughout the public hearings that were held across the 9 provinces. I need to also say the public hearings were held in about 5 areas also in this province. This committee has also gone the same length and breadth of moving into the different communities the same amount of times. So I'm simply saying, I think Parliament has gone a long way in terms of listening to the views, and we still are at a point where we can conclude that the issues are still the same from those that came from the public hearings. Now, I need to indicate, Chairperson, that when we retreated after our engagements with the public through the public hearings, after our engagements with the portfolio committee, and reflecting on all that information that was received, we had to go back to the portfolio committee to go and give feedback and explain why these circumstances. And each government department, as I said, for the first time, different government departments had to go and talk on issues that are impacting on their core mandates. So SASSA, various government departments came in, they spoke about issues that are affecting them, Department of Health, all these issues that have been raised in terms of medication, the long queues, the attitudes of healthcare practitioners in facilities, the state of hospitals in this province. Chairperson and members have also listened to our older persons throughout the other areas that Chairperson indicated we have been to during the course of these hearings. So it is the same issues. And there are plans that are going to be mentioned by the Chairperson in terms of how they plan to execute, their responsibilities around those issues. So in that regard, we do acknowledge the issues that are being said in terms of SASSA and the state of affairs, people sleeping at SASSA pay points. It's not only people waking up early, some sleep at those pay points, and that's when they get robbed, they get sexually abused, they get abused, and all those kinds of things. So the plight of SASSA is fully aware. We have had engagements with the local SASSA office, head office. They have also come up with a plan. They've received the reports that came from the portfolio committee, and plans are underway to deal with these issues. I thought it's important that I just summarize the state of affairs relating to SASSA. The same goes to the issues that have been raised in terms of the Department of Health. They've indicated they are going to be addressing those issues, and we hope that because the response happened a few months ago, I think it was at the end of May, we are now, I think, 3-4 months down the line, they should be actioning. And remember, there's transition from 6th administration to the 7th administration. So we will continue working with these government departments. As indicated, intersectoral issues are currently being addressed. We are coming up with collaborative approaches. There are intersectoral structures that have been put in place to ensure that government departments meet. But there is also the forum that I talked about, which is funded by the Department of Social Development, the South African Older Persons Forum, which is active and is there in different communities and in different districts. So it is important that members, when you have issues, please report them on time so that they don't drag and take too long before they can be addressed. And also to say, there is what we call the district development model, where wards are supposed to be holding meetings, regular meetings, to discuss problems of specific communities. And please, as older persons, make sure that you also partake in those kinds of structures where discussions happen in terms of the plights of older persons. And then on the issue of abuse, it is very sad to hear older persons saying what can be done. It is really very sad. But indeed, it is something that is happening. Some of the recent videos are things that were happening in the Western Cape. But I need to indicate that we have strengthened our interventions in this regard. Various key role players have been brought on board. The cases that happened in the Western Cape recently, they have all successfully, been managed by all key stakeholders, including the Department of Justice. And in terms of what can be done, I've already shared with you the improvement areas that we thought requires our attention. Issues of supporting older persons once they report the matters, legal aids availability, allowing them to speak in their own languages, also being allowed to testify away from the premises so that we protect them from their perpetrators. So these are some of the developments that we are going to continue seeing happening. And then I think the issue of the state of hospitals as well as clinics is an issue that goes along with what I was saying, the Department of Health will be handling. But as I indicated, Chair will also maybe perhaps touch on that as she closes. And then on the increase of old age pension grants, we do acknowledge that it will definitely not make our older persons feel that it is enough. And the reason is one, the old age grant itself was never designed to be a fund that is going to maintain the entire family. It was meant for an older person. That is why it is being received by one person under their name. Unfortunately, that which government is also fully aware of is that this grant is now a family grant in a way, because now older persons have got grandchildren, they've got children that are not working, unemployment is very high in the country. COVID came, it left us with very bad repercussions. Disasters have happened, families have been misplaced, they've lost so many things. So in that regard, we do understand why older persons are complaining, because they are using their grants to take care of their grandchildren, take them to school, but also to take care of their own children who have not been fortunate to get jobs, regardless of the fact that they have taken them to school. So there are annual increases, of course, that happen, and we understand and respect the fact that they may not necessarily make that kind of impact when we take care of the broader family needs. And Chairperson, as I work towards concluding, let me just make my final 2 comments. The issue of children and grandchildren's relationships, we do acknowledge that the current reality in terms of the relationship of the younger generation and the older generation is not all well. You've raised issues that are impacting negatively on you. One of the key things being the theft that happens in your own service centers, where you leave your equipment, you leave your food, and even when you get robbed, when you come back from your pay points and all those kind of things, break-ins that happen. These very same issues are perpetuated by the very circumstances I've just raised, unemployment and all those kind of things. But we really need to reflect in terms of what the current reality is dictating to us, because it shows that the traditional interventions and approaches that we have always utilized or employed in terms of responding to the needs of the younger generation, but also the needs of our older persons, are not really yielding the desired results. So truth is that we need to really relook into the kind of programs that we will put in place to respond to the needs of older persons as well as those of youth, and make sure that we bridge the gap between all of them. Chairperson, okay, just on the issue of police, I think it's important that, Chair, maybe as part of your take homes, you need to also look at how best can we deal with the issue of police. It keeps on cropping up. It's linked to the issue of crime that is also being perpetuated by young people in terms of service centers of older persons, robbing them when they come from pay points. So clearly police have got a very critical role to play. If the circumstances at SASSA are not improving, it means police must also be part of making sure that our older persons become comfortable. We must also understand that as you age, when you want something, you have your own thinking, and nobody can convince you easily to move from that to another option if we are not really making them comfortable. So for as long as we have older persons that go to service points, sleep there because of the quality of services that are being provided, or because of the numbers and the queues and all those things, we need to make sure that they are comfortable and they are safe when they're in such spaces. So I think there's need for engagements with with SAPS, so that this matter of the safety and security of our older persons can then be taken care of. And lastly, it would not be correct for me not to touch on the issue of services to people with disability. We do acknowledge, sir, that the provision of services to people with disability is a very expensive way of providing services. And they are, of course, having their own special needs, and those need to also be taken care of. And perhaps the role of various government departments need to also be employed in terms of how best can we coordinate and support one another as different government departments to ensure the successful management of the needs and issues that affect negatively our people with disabilities. They have had a desk in the presidency. They have been moved to the Department of Social Development. They've moved back to the presidency. And I think in different government departments, the importance of mainstreaming needs to also be elevated. And also, you know, having dedicated people like Charles was saying earlier on, if we are to make inroads in terms of making sure that we implement this legislation successfully, we will really need to relook in terms of how best can we rearrange, repackage, and reapproach our provision of services and resourcing thereof and availability of the necessary capacity. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hodo. Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I've got 5 minutes, but I could actually talk an hour to you. Ek wil net sê baie dankie vir die ouete huise, Sensit en so aan wat baie dankie gesê het. Ek weet my mense is baie by baie van julle. They're all over at the old age homes. But it's very difficult if you've got over almost 240 old age homes to be there every day. It's impossible for us. So dit gaan ook na wat Vincent gesê het. Training is needed. People need to be trained so that the right people are actually involved in the old age homes, not chances. There's a few of them that's chances out there, and I know who they are. And it's coming to the front. A person can see who they are. What I just want to say is the main things that is your concern is SASSA in gesondheid. En ek dink hier was 'n vraag vroeër gewees. Ja, kyk goed, die wet word nou aangepas. Kan nog 'n jaar of 2 vat. But no, tussenin. What's happening in between? What I want to leave you with is it's so important to organize yourself. And there are some of you that's reps of Mitchell's Plain, Representative Support Group, and various other groups. It's extremely important you organize yourself in a senior citizen group. You've got to have a voice in your community. You must. Because if you do not have a voice, people are going to ignore you about the children that's doing things, the drugs, the jobs, the scarcity of jobs. You've got to have a voice. But now having that voice, what do you do with that voice? People don't always listen, especially when it comes to older persons. There's a voice for children because we have problems with children also being abused in this country. Well, this province too, obviously. But as senior citizens, you must get your voice out. It means go to your local newspaper. It means go to your councillors. It means come to DSD. I've got a toll-free number here that I will give you guys if you want to phone. Because you cannot stop opening or lifting your voice about these issues. There's a Western Cape Older Persons Forum that you can make contact with. They are the organization in this Western Cape, if you do not know of them, that must lobby and do awareness on all issues for senior citizens in this province. If you are not aware of them, make contact with them. If you don't want to go to them, then continue with your own stuff. It is important that where you pick up, and I think yes, issues of old age homes, and I think it's unregistered ones. If you pick up people are doing things in an old age home, and sometimes not even an old age home, it's just a little place that somebody's put up, bring it to our attention. We will send out people to go investigate it. We will do that. If I can tell you the list I've got right now in my office of just doing investigation, they will keep me busy till 2025. So, but we do it. We do it. We find time. Even after hours, we find time to help. So organize yourself. And then the last thought I want to leave you with We need to get organized on government level with health and police services and even SASSA. Now, a lot of you do think that SASSA is part of social services. No, they're not. They're part of the national department, but the other provinces, it's not our staff. They don't work for us. But we have a very good relationship with them. Our minister has been engaging them quite often since he's been appointed as our new minister. He's got a very good relationship with them. This stuff we need to escalate to SASSA. Although they know some of the stuff, but we need to work on a plan. And this means there is a group in this province that works with health. It's my own staff that has quarterly meetings with health, SASSA, and those people, other departments. And then there's some NGOs like representing the old age homes and the forums. They come to those meetings. But you must organize yourself in your own area. En moet nie stil bly nie. Moenie omdat iemand vir jou ignoreer oor iets nie, jy vat hom aan. Jy hou nie op nie. Ons moet aanhou. Daar moet hoop wees. We must have hope. There's always hope. So even if we just go with this, I mean, it's very good stuff you said, and we know a lot of this stuff, but we must stand together. And it's amazing to see so many people here today because we need to stand together as a collective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jordan. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our engagement this afternoon. Allow me to thank Ms. Legordo for your time and your efforts and crisscrossing this Western Cape with us and being of so much assistance. And even us as a committee, I think I can speak on behalf of the committee, has learned so much during this process that we can implement and institute going forward. You've given us a lot of ideas as to, in our oversight mandate, how we can improve on that as well. Mr. Jordan, vir u en die personeel wat ook deurlopend met ons was, baie dankie en groot waardering. Ons weet julle is besige mense, maar julle het die tyd gemaak om saam met die komitee te wees. En ook in instances where there were issues outside of the scope of what we were doing, they were more than willing at each and every public hearing to engage with the public and do the necessary referrals. Please do express our sincere thanks and appreciation to them. Perhaps just for members of the public before we conclude, you will now notice that there were various other issues mentioned, like the SASSAs, your police, and the clinics, the health facilities, and so forth. So us as a committee will then reconvene once our report is ready. En ek wil net vanmiddag vir u die versekering gee dat die kwessies wat u nog genoem het, wat dalk nou nie van toepassing is op die voorgestelde aanpassings nie, ons gaan dit nou nie bloot ignoreer nie. Remember, it's recorded, it's captured under your name, and it is now for the committee to deal with that various issues, which means is we now need to engage with our fellow government departments where that specific issue lies with. We need to now engage and refer the various issues to make sure that you can see the difference where it matters. So I just wanted to give you the reassurance. It's not going to disappear. It is with the committee, it's recorded, and we will then accordingly make the necessary referrals in that regard. We also, as you've noticed in our ons mekaar nou voorstel, we have the chairperson of Health and Wellness Standing Committee, the Honorable Boyson. He have made notice and minutes of each and every session, all those health-related issues, facility management, chronic medication, all those issues are noted, and it's noted the various facilities as well. So we must now engage based on what transpires in our report with that various government departments. So once again, thank you so much for coming out to the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, en dit nogals op 'n Vrydagmiddag. Dit wil gedoen wees. So ons het baie groot waardering, en dit wys net, die stem moet gehoor word, want ons kan nie in ons hoekie as 'n komitee gaan sit en besluit, dit is eintlik wat moet gebeur nie. Die mense van die Weskaap moet praat. And we are very proud to say that the people of the Western Cape, die opkoms was so besonder. En dit was vir ons 'n voorreg om met die gemeenskap van die Weskaap te engage op hierdie voorgestelde aanpassings en ek glo en vertrou dat dit is nie ons laaste samekoms nie, dat ons mekaar weer in die onmiddellike toekoms sal sien. Dan wil ek net vir u sê in ons members lounge is daar 'n versnaperingkie vir u. So moenie gaan sonder dat jy ietsie gekry het nie asseblief. And then on behalf of the Committee of Social Development, thank you so much and I wish you a most blessed weekend and a safe journey home. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.